China has been at odds with many other countries in the Asia-Pacific for years over its sweeping maritime claims, including almost all of the South China Sea. A strategic and resource-rich waterway around which Beijing has drawn a 10-dash line on official maps to delineate what it calls its territory. Beijing is in the midst of a massive military expansion and has become increasingly assertive in pursuing its claims, giving rise to more frequent direct confrontations, primarily with the Philippines, though it is also involved in long-time territorial disputes with Vietnam, Taiwan, Malaysia, and Brunei. A 2016 arbitration ruling by a United Nations tribunal invalidated Beijing's claims in the South China Sea, but China did not participate in the proceedings and rejected the ruling. At stake are fishing rights, access to undersea oil reserves and other natural resources, as well as the possibility of establishing military outposts. The U.S., a treaty partner with the Philippines, has raised concerns about China's actions, and President Joe Biden has pledged ironclad support for Manila. That sparked fears that if an incident escalates, it could spark a wider conflict.
The United States defense commitment to the Philippines is ironclad. The United States defense agreement to the Philippines is ironclad. Any attack on the Filipino aircraft vessels or armed forces will invoke our mutual defense treaty with the Philippines.
In the latest incident, a China Coast Guard vessel and a Philippine Coast Guard ship had a collision near Escoda Shoal in the West Philippine Sea on Monday, according to a Chinese official. The Chinese official also accused BRP Bagakay of deliberately colliding with a CCG vessel. At 3:24, the Philippine ship number 4410 BRP Bagakay ignored China's repeated solemn warnings and deliberately collided with China's 21551 boat, which was normally safeguarding its rights and enforcing the law in an unprofessional and dangerous manner, resulting in a collision. China's Coast Guard said a Philippine Coast Guard vessel entered waters near the Escoda Shoal, a submerged reef in the Spratly Islands that's part of territory claimed by several nations. The Philippine military called the Chinese Coast Guard's report deceptive and misleading. Here's a look at some other incidents and developments in recent months. June 4th, Philippine officials say the Chinese Coast Guard seized food dropped for Filipino naval personnel on an outpost on 2nd Thomas Shoal. Philippine General Romeo Bronner says the Chinese may have suspected the packages contained construction materials intended to reinforce the rusty Philippine Navy ship deliberately run aground at 2nd Thomas Shoal to serve as a Philippine outpost. May 16th. About 100 Filipino activists on wooden boats change plans to distribute food to Filipinos based on the 2nd Thomas Shoal after being shadowed by Chinese Coast Guard ships through the night. Instead, they distribute food packs and fuel southeast of the disputed territory. April 30th. Chinese Coast Guard ships fire water cannons at 2 Philippine patrol vessels near the Scarborough Shoal, another hotly disputed area where tensions have flared on and off. Philippine officials say water cannons could damage their ships' engines, or even capsize the smaller vessels. China called its move a necessary measure, accusing the Philippines of violating China's sovereignty. China also reinstalled a floating barrier across the entrance to the shoal's vast fishing lagoon. April 23rd. A Chinese Coast Guard ship blocks a Philippine patrol vessel near 2nd Thomas Shoal, causing a near collision. Before the incident, a Chinese naval vessel had shadowed 2 Philippine patrol boats as they cruised near Subi, one of 7 barren reefs in the Spratly Islands that China has transformed in the last decade into a missile-protected island military outpost. March 23rd. A Chinese Coast Guard hits a Philippine supply boat with water cannons near 2nd Thomas Shoal, injuring crew members and damaging the vessel, Philippine officials say. China says the Philippines intruded into its territorial waters despite repeated warnings. March 5th. Chinese and Philippine Coast Guard vessels are involved in a minor collision off the 2nd Thomas Shoal, and 4 Filipino crew members are injured when China blasts a supply boat with water cannons, shattering its windshield.
It is instant chaos.
China's Coast Guard says the Philippine ships were illegally intruding in the area's waters and accused one of them of ramming a Chinese vessel. January 12th. A Filipino fishing boat captain says a Chinese Coast Guard drives him away from Escoda Shoal and forces him to dump his catch into the sea. These are just a few of the innumerable harassments by Chinese ships in the Philippines, and they have even reached the point where the lives of Filipino soldiers fighting for their rights have been put in jeopardy. China's actions are very unpredictable. This conflict has deep roots in the South China Sea, where China has blatantly claimed the entirety of the West Philippine Sea, which is close to Philippine territory. This is just another proof that no country or law can stop the continued strengthening of China to do what they want to do, especially the military activities here in the South China Sea. A serious question is whether the Philippines is prepared for any situation in case war breaks out, but I hope it doesn't. As a Filipino, what is your attitude regarding this issue?